I don't think we'll ever get to the 2024 election. I think things are going to implode in Washington before then. I think our economic financial condition is fragile. It's going to come home to roost in ugly ways. I will tell you, I don't know exactly how it will happen. I think we're going to end up in a situation where we find out the banks are closed for 2 or 3 weeks and nobody can get into them.
You think so?
I think we're going to run into something like that, yeah.
People use Bitcoin. It could help bring down the dollar. You think that's a real possibility?
Yo, what's up? This is Harry Potter Sonic Obama 10 you, and I'm gonna let you know I'm at the headquarters, baby, and I'm checking the dials, and it looks like we're about to go to the moon, baby! What shit?
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you had a wonderful week. Hope you're having a great weekend. Bitcoin is just chilling, just really doing nothing. What we don't want, though, is to get a little bit of a Bart Simpson, right? We've seen that before, where Bitcoin will chop sideways and then all of a sudden just dump straight down. Is that what Bitcoin is going to end up doing? Well, there is one chart, actually, that has nothing to do with Bitcoin that, believe it or not, could actually give us some hints as to what Bitcoin might end up doing next week. Now, of course, some people are looking at the stock market chart, comparing it to Bitcoin. They're a little bit concerned whether or not Bitcoin will end up following what the stocks do, but there is a Bitcoin Wyckoff accumulation happening potentially right now, which I think you're going to be very interested in seeing how this could actually end up playing out. We also have over-the-counter Bitcoin trades up 60% in just this quarter. What does this mean and how can we interpret the data? You're going to want to stick around for that. I also want to talk about something a little bit scary that could not just affect the US, but could affect everybody, but is it actually going to end up being an advertisement for Bitcoin? That is the question. And of course, because we do have to look at both sides of the coin, pun intended, I do have a little bit of a word of caution as we head into the week. So if all of that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, well, you are missing out, my friends. So let's look at the charts right here. You could see that we did have a perfect parallel channel. And really, for the most part, we had this little fake out right here, but we are currently back inside the channel. So as long as we can stay inside this upwards parallel channel, then I believe everything is good for Bitcoin. And really, the area that I had been talking about, that I was looking to touch, which was this Terra Luna wick right here, we had that resistance, and then right here, we got that support. So as far as I'm concerned, we've had the retest. Could we come back down to 25,000, ish and retest it and bounce back up again? Of course, but I do think this shows that buyers were stepping in at those critical levels. If we have a look at the CME futures gaps, we have one gap above our head at about $35,100, and then we also have this one down here, which is around 20,300. But the reason that I'm skeptical about closing this gap and going all the way back down to 20,000 is because we had the gap originally right here, right? And then this candle came down and essentially closed that gap, right? But then the next day, we had a new gap over the same exact gap. So that's something you really don't see. It's not common. So the way that I've interpreted that is that because we filled the initial gap, maybe the secondary gap doesn't matter. And the next one you could see, which 95% of the time we do close them, that could be headed all the way up, potentially even to around $35,000. Now, is that realistic for Bitcoin? Well, as you can see, we are in this blue zone. The top area is around 33,000 even. I've been saying 32,000 weekly close, $32,000. I think that would solidify it. But if we look at the similarities, I just want you guys to see the similarities between what happened back here in 2017 and what's happening here right now. So we had a blow off top. We didn't have a blow off top here, right? That was a little bit different. So this was a, maybe a Wyckoff distribution, which stick around because you're going to be interested in seeing the reversal of that in just a minute. But you could see again, we had this sort of blue zone, right? This blue zone right here, and we had this blue zone right here. And what were these zones doing? Well, this zone was acting as the support. Every time Bitcoin's price, if I zoom in, you can see right here, every time Bitcoin, would come down, look, we had this wick, boom, bounce back up. This was not as intense. Boom, bounce, 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 and then we just bounce, 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 and then finally we fell through, right? And of course, that acted a little bit as resistance right there, but once we broke through it, man, that was just absolute, just moonshot right to the top. And if we come over here and we have a look at what's going on right now, we're in the same area, right? Where we're trying to sort of break through. And if we can break through that area, then I do think you're looking at some of these next levels. For example, if I go over here, you know, you have these two green targets, one at around 35.4 and one at 37.2. And don't forget, like I was telling you guys before, you know, we had that massive, well, this is gold, not really doing much of anything, but we had this massive, massive falling wedge, right? And, you know, if you put the breakout here, as I've showed you, that could bring us anywhere up to 57 to even 47 to 57,000. So again, I still do feel quite bullish, even though there may be something terrible that happens. Maybe the world goes into a war, or, you know, maybe we finally have this crazy recession that everybody's talking about. But, you know, on the short term, yeah, it's showing the possibility of maybe moving to the downside, because you can see whenever we have on the daily, we have, if you look at these EMAs up here, and you have this sort of blue area, right? And when that blue area goes into the neutral area, sometimes you do have those drawdowns. For example, right here, we had that confirmation with the blue and we came all the way down. Well, right here, short term, you could see we are heading neutral. But again, this is on the lower time frame, right? So if you're trading, you know, today or tomorrow or maybe during the week, all right, you might have to deal with that. But again, if we switch it to the weekly, you see what I'm saying? This is looking very good, guys. And again, if we switch it to the monthly, well, it's looking even better. It's looking even better, right? So of course, we are above this 50 monthly, which is very, very, very critically significant. And if we break out of this green channel right here, which you can see, we don't really generally stay down in this area for very long. Sorry, let me get all this drawing out of here so you guys could see. Then, you know, we could be looking at literally the price around that $32,900 level. So again, 32, 33, as we've been saying, and that could be the big break to the upside. And another thing too that I want to point out, you know, everyone's like, well, how do you know that we can't go to these crazy, crazy low levels? How do you know that Bitcoin can't go back down to like 14 or 10? Well, look at this volume range right here. Look at this profile, okay? Look at how much interest there is right there. And you can see this red line coincides with it. And that number right here is 21,130 roughly, okay? So yeah, guys, I mean, I look at that amount of interest. That's a lot of accumulation at those levels. So, you know, you generally aren't going to see the price fall below here, because if it does, well, then we're coming all the way back down to about 12,000. Just going to be honest with you guys. I just don't see that happening. Let me look at the amount of interest right there. This is all accumulation. This is all, you know, buying, right? And again, we're above the 200 weekly. And another thing is, look at the US dollar index. Now, the DXY has been sort of on this upward sloping trend, right? But it does have this very critical level at that psychological 100 area. And of course, if we do have that breakdown, even if we still continue on the upward sloping trend for the DXY, but we come down below this, well, we know that when the dollar tends to fall, we tend to see an inverse relation between things like Bitcoin, stocks, risk assets, right? Now, like Crypto Professor pointed out, the Wyckoff method is essentially showing us that we should be potentially headed for $36,000 to $40,000. Now, we've seen this before. We saw the distribution, and now you're basically flipping it on its head, and what you're seeing is the accumulation. Also a giant cup and handle pattern that I've talked about. Also the fact that you could see we are above the realized price for Bitcoin, and whenever we get above the realized price, we either generally have one test of it, right? We usually test it once, or we just blow right through it and we stay above it for the rest of the cycle. And currently, the realized price is sitting at $20,400. And if you zoom in, you can see we've already had the retest. So not saying that history has to repeat, it often does rhyme. Mike McGlone, he's worried. He's saying Bitcoin's 84% gain in the first half of this year was about double that of NASDAQ, but he's afraid that they are still correlated. And if we do have this top out, you see where we had this right here, right here, right here. If we do have a breakdown of stocks, which they don't look like, I mean, they'd have to break this upwards trend right here, then maybe that could affect Bitcoin as well. But let's look at what's going on with Bitcoin specifically. So Glassnode points out, following the BlackRock ETF request, the share of Bitcoin supply held and traded by US entities has experienced a notable uptick, marking a potential inflection point in supply dominance if the trend is sustained. But again, is this just the silly little retail? The silly retail just coming in and scooping up the scraps and they're just going to get dumped on? Well, Bitcoin balances over-the-counter trading desks, so these are OTC desks, which ARK Invest uses as a proxy for institutions. Well, that's up 60% in just this quarter. So you don't really see a lot of individuals, small fish, regular, everyday Joes using OTC. It's usually high net worth individuals, institutions, corporations, businesses, things like that, right? So you could see right here that this shows basically some form of bullishness. According to the new issue of Bitcoin Monthly, an earnings report that details on-chain activity, the balance of Bitcoin held on OTC desks actually hit an all-time high. 8,000 Bitcoin sitting on these desks, notching an impressive 60% increase this quarter. Sorry, I just have to jot down a note right here. I just had a thought, and I'm doing it live. Stay till the end, maybe I'll let you guys know. Cathie Wood's ARK uses OTC desks as a proxy for institutional activity, suggesting that the numbers reported show institutions and other large capital allocators are focused increasingly on Bitcoin. They say this is a bullish sign. In our view, increased balances on OTC desks suggest that institutions and other large capital allocators are focused increasingly on Bitcoin. And this was actually crazy. But Luke Martin, you guys may have seen this Las Vegas sphere that cost $2.3 billion. So he says, this new sphere costs $2.3 billion, uses 150 terawatt hours of electricity per year to power the massive screen. That's almost double the yearly power consumption of Bitcoin. Wait until the climate people see this. So what's the excuse then, guys? What's the excuse then? We have this 150 terawatt using double the yearly power consumption of Bitcoin. And all it does is pretty much just show you, pumpkins and eyeballs and creepy things. The eyeball, that's just creepy. Imagine looking out your window and seeing that. That's just freaky, man. I don't know if I like that. But, as you guys may have seen in the beginning, this is from Ronan. And he says a former U.S. Colonel Douglas McGregor does not believe the U.S. will have an election in 2024 and predicts a dire financial situation in which the banks will remain closed for a number of weeks.
You're absolutely right. I don't think we'll ever get to the 2024 election. I think things are going to implode in Washington before then. I think our economic financial condition is fragile. It's going to come home to roost in ugly ways. Now, I will tell you, I don't know exactly how it will happen. I think we're going to end up in a situation where we find out the banks are closed for 2 or 3 weeks and nobody can get into them.
You think so?
I think we're going to run into something like that, yeah. I also think that the levels of violence and criminality in our cities is so high that it's going to spill over into other places in society. People that normally think they can live remote from the problem are now beginning to be touched by the problem. Then I look at this thing in Ukraine. I think Ukraine is going to lose catastrophically. It's going to be a complete collapse. And that, too, is going to have an effect here at home because people are going to say, well, wait a minute. Everybody told us Ukraine was winning. Everybody told us X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's sort of the Russian hoax on steroids. All of those things are going to come together or converge in some way that's going to prevent us from reaching, the status quo. Oh, another election. Oh, another set of campaigns and so forth.
So if that's not an advertisement for Bitcoin, I don't know what is. And of course, there are bad news with the good news. Right now, Wall Street Journal says that Binance has started laying off their US-based employees. Additionally, they laid off a large number of employees last week. According to the Wall Street Journal, the employees were not given any reason, while others were told that they had become redundant, whatever that means. The exchange has a plan to reduce its US-based staff. So of the 1,000 that they have global staff, 150 in the US were employed. Its global staff does not include that of Binance America US. and also recently laid off about 50 people, or about 10% of their Binance US workforce. So US is not being very friendly, and I've heard a lot of people saying that, oh, this could be similar to like an FTX thing. Again, I don't want to say yes or no, and I don't want to pass judgment, because to be honest with you, I was shocked when I heard the FTX news. Now, I never used FTX. I never promoted FTX. I didn't really like the exchange kind of like user experience. That's just me personally. But I was shocked to find this out. I would be even more shocked to find out that Binance was doing something like this. I know a lot of people like to fire a lot of shots at Binance, but I think I've been watching these guys for, a long time now, about 6 years. And I have to be honest, they always pull through and they always do what they say they're going to do. So I'm not sticking up for Binance. I don't even use Binance Exchange. I use like BitGet. I like Apex. Femex is good. Bybit, but now they have their KYC. But lots of options below if you guys are interested. The bonuses and tutorials. There's always an option. There's always a way. But, you have Gemini as well. They've taken legal action against Digital Currency Group, accusing them of fraud against creditors. They're looking to recover their funds. So, this situation with these guys is still ongoing. But to end on a positive note, yes, there's a lot of negative things that could be happening in the space at any given moment. But, we also have things like presidential candidate RFK saying that he has 250 in Bitcoin. And Larry Fink from BlackRock saying that crypto, specifically Bitcoin, could revolutionize the financial system. He says, we do believe that if we can create more tokenization of assets and securities, that's what Bitcoin is. It could literally revolutionize finance. So again, having a look at this, I hope we don't get some kind of a Bart Simpson, boom, if you guys know that's a possibility. We've seen that before. Very hard when it comes to the Bart Simpsons. They're very, very hard to predict. Because usually what you get is you either get a violent Bart Simpson to the downside, or you just get a violent continuation to the upside. So this is one of those scenarios where you could hedge in both directions. It is a risky play. If you do use some of the exchanges below, like if you use Apex or if you use BitGet, you can hedge in either direction. So you can kind of have, if this happens, stop out, this, you know what I mean? So you might be able to play this both ways. I think really we just kind of have to wait until Monday. I don't really expect any major move tomorrow. I could be wrong, but weekend moves tend to get negated come the week anyway, right? So that's why trading on the weekends can get a little bit crazy. But nevertheless, guys, again, if you do want a hardware wallet, I recommend Engrave down below. If you use my link, you get 10% off. They're kind of expensive, so you may want to use that link if you're interested. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.
Which one's the best crypto asset? Well, Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. What's the second best? There is no second best. There's no second best crypto asset. There's a crypto asset. It's called Bitcoin, right? There is no second best.